I'm Dan Clark, I'm the town manager. I'm not sure I've met everybody, but most everybody. Thank you for participating in the Parks and Rec Committee. We have some thoughts and ideas on what we want to do to improve parks. Eliza and Bill are going to cover all of the meeting, and I'm going to sit back and play with the cameras and stuff for the public. We are recording it, but we are not live broadcasting. This will be available for the public probably by end of tomorrow on the town's website. You can find past council meetings and other stuff that we've done there as well. This is what we call a hybrid meeting. There are chairs for some public if they choose to show up. Nobody chose to show up tonight, and nobody has chosen to participate virtually from the public, so it's pretty much you guys. Cameras will change position from time to time to catch, hopefully if I'm good enough, to catch who's talking. The microphones are tied into the recording and the broadcast, so speak into the mics as you normally would, and it will show up on the broadcast. And with that, it's up to you.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the meeting to order. That's not how it usually takes place. When we decide who the chair is, the chair will call the meeting to order. So I'm gonna call the meeting to order. The time is now 6:32 p.m. So I'm gonna do a roll call first, and everyone is just listed alphabetically at the moment. So David Agar, you're gonna say here.
Here.
Sorry. Jennifer Trinansky.
Here.
Renee Connors.
Here.
Anthony Intenza.
Here.
Doreen Harling.
Here.
Christina Seal.
Here.
Claudine Vesser.
Here.
All right, and then we're all gonna rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And the flag is behind you on the dais. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and then everyone has to do their oath of office. So if everyone would stand and then repeat after me. In the blank space, you're going to state your name. So I.
You're
Anthony
Intenza.
Okay, do solemnly swear or affirm
Do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States
the Constitution and government of the United States
and the state of Florida,
and the state of Florida,
that I am duly qualified to hold office
that I am duly qualified to hold office
under the Constitution of the state,
under the Constitution of the state,
and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties
and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties
of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board Committee,
of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board Committee,
member of the town of Lake Clark Shores, Florida,
member of the town of Lake Clark Shores, Florida,
on which I am about to enter.
on which I am now about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, then if everyone would make sure that you sign and date the bottom and then sign again under the penalties of perjuries. And at the end of the meeting, I'll collect them from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, you didn't get it. But you got it.
So right now, we're going to open discussion for the organization of the board. So we need to decide who we would like to chair the board and who the vice chair would be. A chairman of a board or committee is pretty much going to run the committee. They're going to restate motions once they're stated. A chair can make a motion if they so choose. Chairs do have the same voting rights as all other members. They're all equal. So if anyone would like to volunteer to be the chair or the vice chair, you guys can discuss among yourselves, and then a motion will have to be made by someone to pick the vice chair and the chairman, and then you'll have to vote on it. If you don't want to be chair, that's fine. The main thing that a chair does is, like I said, they'll do what I'm doing right now, which is help us get through the meeting, make sure everyone has their moment to speak, So, and it's okay to be aggressive and want to be the chair. No one's going to take it personally.
Go for it, Dave. Come on.
No, you're experienced. You have the most recreational experience.
I know, but I don't want to.
I don't,
Come on, Dave.
no,
You
I thought you were gonna be,
stuff, come on.
Anthony.
You don't want it.
You're,
Too much responsibility.
yeah, I just want to show up and get my 2 cents and, you know,
Uh,
I don't want to get too sucked in this, you know.
Anybody else? You interested? Not interested?
No, not right now. I think you should. That's
You're one or the other.
Universe is
You're
telling
one, Anthony.
I want to do it.
no.
I mean,
Well, somebody else.
nobody
right.
else will do it. I'll
I'll-
do it, I guess, but
Yeah, you should do it. I'll do it.
Alright,
Do you want me to do it? I have to.
You do it.
I have to cheat. I have to cheat every time because I'm not a big.
you do it. I'll be
I
your
literally
vice.
have to
How's
read
that?
off of this
Alright.
like a
So you got
motion.
the chair and the
to-
vice.
There
Like,
you
do
go.
I?
Go.
Yeah.
Thank
And I
you.
just cheat off this every single time.
So,
'cause I never
so
do.
pretty much all you're going to have to say is, I would like to make a motion
Yeah.
that, are you going to nominate yourself?
Oh, I have to do the motion too? I'm not going to be that good at this. 'Cause
Someone
I
else
don't
can
take
make
these
the
things
motion
that
to
way.
nominate you as chair, and then whoever is vice chair.
Yeah.
I make the motion to nominate
I feel like you
Jennifer.
should be doing
as the
this.
I
chair.
second that.
I think you two should be doing this.
We'll help you. It's all good.
Okay, if you'll just state it clearly in the mic for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I make the motion to nominate Jennifer as the chair.
Okay.
Okay, so a motion's been made for Jennifer Tranowski to be the chairman of the Park and Recreation Advisory Board Committee.
I second the motion.
Okay,
All in favor, aye, right?
yep, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously passed.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Congrats.
Okay.
We'll be okay.
Unfortunately, we have to do this again for a vice chair, so. And anyone can make a motion to nominate someone else. So,
I make a motion to
chair.
nominate Anthony.
No, I'm not gonna be,
Vice chair.
Anthony's the vice chair, so somebody needs,
Anthony, be
I
the
think
vice chair?
Okay.
All right. I file a motion for Anthony to be the vice chairman.
do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
second.
Okay, unanimously passed, right?
Hold on one second. Okay, so
jump
the
again?
motion was for Anthony Atenza to be the vice chair, proposed by Jennifer Tranowski, seconded by Doreen Harling. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Give me just 1 second. Okay. I just forgot to bring the hands to you, since you're not sitting in the middle seat.
Okay. Oh, and then I get the gavel. You should have done it. I'm telling you.
Okay.
I switched over.
It's okay.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to welcome and introductions. Dan Clark has already welcomed you. You know who he is. So now I'm going to introduce Bill Murphy. He's our Parks Director.
I don't know what to say other than thank you for doing this so we can see what we're going to do about pickleball. And that's our focus. Any questions I'm glad to give you my card after the meeting if you have questions. I think that's all I have.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Eliza. I'm your recording clerk. So I'm going to take the minutes of the meeting. I'm going to help you guys move through the agenda until you get great at it. I've worked for the town for 5 years. This is the third board that I've been the recording clerk for. So we're going to move now to the presentations. So we have one about the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee Board. So that's just going to go through the basics of what your board is, what it does, the kind of powers it has, some of the rules and regulations. A lot of you haven't been on a board before or haven't been on a board with the town. So it's going to touch just on some basics. And then after that, we're going to get into what a Ferdapp grant a Ferdap grant is and why that's important. And that's kind of the reason we're all together. We need you guys to support us and help us move forward with making changes in the parks. And the Ferdapp grant essentially is a big key in making that happen. Okay, Emily?
Yes, Eliza, the approval of the agenda wasn't done.
Oh, okay. Jennifer, can
Oh,
you,
I'm supposed to make a motion.
someone else has to make a motion, but
Can someone please make a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
okay, someone has to second it.
Second.
Okay,
And then you can go ahead and manage the voting.
and then everyone vote. I don't know what to say.
Sorry.
Approval of the motion.
Oh, approval of the motion to approve the agenda?
Yeah, to approve the agenda.
Okay. Everyone approves?
Aye.
Okay. Unanimously approved.
Okay,
Okay.
You did good. That's good.
thank you, Emily. Okay, so you guys have a printout of the PowerPoint presentation so you can follow along, but it's also going to be on all the computers. So if you could go to the next slide, Emily. So the key elements of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee is committee membership, committee meetings, and that kind of contributes to the purpose and the responsibility of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Next slide. So the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee mission statement. The Town of Lake Clark Shores Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee's mission is to provide safe, well-maintained parks and to provide areas and equipment that can be used to enhance the quality of life for residents of all ages within the Town of Lake Clark Shores. That's the goal and the heart of the Parks and Recreation Committee. Next slide. Thank you. Definition and purpose of the Parks and Recreation Committee. So the Parks and Recreation Committee is as needed basis. So that's why there's kind of been a hiatus over the last year or two and why we haven't been together and why we have so many new members. They get together for special projects and it doesn't require a regular meeting like a code board meeting or anything like that. It's a special committee. So the board is an advisory board. And so it works in a capacity with staff on park projects, and that's by participating in meetings, supporting research, asking us to research, help provide analysis, provide input and recommendations, not just to town staff, but also to town council. Whatever you guys would like us to move forward with is a suggestion, and the town council has the ultimate power because they're going to make the deciding factor on whether or not they're going to approve budget for it and the project to move forward. Next slide. So the basic membership is that you have to be a Lake Clark Shores resident. The board has 5 regular members and they serve on 3-year terms. And we have several alternate members. Currently, we have 2. By next meeting, we'll have 3. Alternate members serve on 1-year terms. A member on a board serves at the leisure of the town council, so you can be removed without cause by majority vote of the town council. The biggest things are ethics laws and sunshine laws, and we're going to go over that. Next slide. So ethics laws. So this is specifically Chapter 112 of the Florida State Statutes, Part 3 Code of Ethics for Public Officers and Employees. And essentially this encompasses prohibited conduct and actions, prohibited employment and business relationships, restrictions on appointing and employing and contracting with relatives, post office holding and employment, revolving door restrictions, voting where there's a conflict of interest, and filing financial disclosures. So members may not abstain from voting unless there is a possible conflict of interest. I don't really foresee that happening here. That happens more so with Code Enforcement Board if someone's in violation who's on the board, or maybe that's a family relative that's coming before the board, things like that. If you have concerns or questions, about if something is ethical or not ethical. The town always suggests that you reach out to Palm Beach County Commission on Ethics. You can also reach out to the state. The county, though, has a better rapport and will get back to you quicker. And their main goal is to make sure that all municipalities and governments are ethically participating in the community. So there are civil and criminal penalties for violating the code of ethics. That could include impeachment, removal or suspension from this office, public censure or reprimand. Board and committee members must complete their ethics training within 90 days of being appointed to their board or committee. So most of you have already completed your ethics training, but you do have about 3 months to complete that from the time you were appointed, which would be the town council meeting you were appointed at. If you need information on how to get to the ethics training online, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to send you a link. I'm also going to refer that lots of things are in your Parks and Recs, your board member participation handbook that you have. So we compiled that specifically because we didn't have an onboarding document for everyone, and we thought that it was essential. So I touch on a lot of things in here, but I don't go in depth. So if you want more information and you want more guidance and where to get more information than what is offered in here, there are links in the appendix. There are forms for you if you need forms. There's lots of stuff in there. Next slide. So the next and really the most important thing that I can stress to you is sunshine law. So Florida's government in the sunshine, section 286.011 Florida statute provides a right of access to governmental proceedings of public boards or commissions at the state and local levels. So the state of Florida Office of the Attorney General compiles the government in the sunshine manual. And this is essentially law that is applicable to elected officials like town council members and boards like this. And what this means is that the gathering of 2 or more members of the same board to discuss matters which will foreseeably come before the board is prohibited. So the town's not saying that you guys can't hang out together, but we want you to be very careful when you do hang out that you don't discuss anything that'll come before the board, because that is in violation of the sunshine law. And that also includes having conversations on Facebook and things like that, because those are technically public records, and we'll get into that later. But when you bring that conversation, you can have another board member comment on that, and that's technically a violation of the sunshine law. Next slide, please. So the Park and Recreation Committee meetings, we're just going to go over dress code, etiquette, the public records law for information for you, and Robert's Rules of Order. Next slide. So the town just suggests as your dress code, just smart casual, business casual, essentially no tank tops, no halter tops, no shorts, no flip-flops, no holey jeans, just because you are being recorded and you are representing the town when you're appearing here. So, next slide. So just some basic etiquette, and mostly this is geared towards public speaking. So just speak clearly and at a steady pace. You want to make sure that you're speaking into the microphone. Face forward as much as possible. The cameras do have a wide angle view, and they also have an angle of each of you when you're speaking. So you always want to make sure you're facing forward, so that way you're not blocking off the view of the camera. We are 100% live and 100% viewable, so just keep that in mind. We can't really see what you're doing at the dais necessarily, but we can see you, and we can see when you're on your cell phone or if you're not paying attention or things like that. We ask that you don't eat during the meeting and that you don't have any alcoholic beverages if you bring your own cup. And the chair usually runs the meeting, and that's how that'll probably work a lot better next meeting, since I won't have any PowerPoint presentations for you. So we follow the flow of the agenda, and we want to make sure that when we're discussing a topic on the agenda, Once we've moved on, we don't go backwards, we just go forwards. So if it's something that you want to bring up, you can maybe mention it, at the end and say, I would like to bring this back up on the agenda for next meeting so we can rediscuss it because I don't feel like it was taken care of. That's something that we can do when it comes to committee discussions. So that way we can put it on the agenda and we know that you have your time to discuss it if you need to. Next slide. So the public records law. So the town is required to allow residents and others to access our records. So a record is any material that does include written, it includes maps, it includes books, it includes photographs, recordings. This meeting being recorded is a public record. Emails that I send you are public records, and when you look at them, they'll have a disclaimer at the bottom. So if you reply back to me, that reply is a public record. If you send me an email that you initiate, that's a public record. I also gave you guys my cell phone number in case there's an emergency and you can't make it. Usually by 5:30, I'm in here, so I'm not at my desk. So you can call my work cell phone, and that is also a public record. And the text messages are public record as well. And we have those archived, so you never have to be concerned over that. But just know that when you're communicating with me or anyone from the town, it is public record. All right, next slide. So Robert's Rules of Order is fundamentally just how a meeting is supposed to work, how we go through the agenda, how you make motions. So the board deals with one subject at a time, and that's why we have the agenda to keep on track. Only one person can speak at a time, and it's the chair's place to make sure that they give everyone their time to speak. And if multiple people want to speak, have the chair recognize the person that wants to speak, that's their time, and then the chair will recognize the next person. A quorum is required. So it's required that we have at least 4 members present in order to have a meeting. And that's why we have alternate members, so they can be here to take that place if we have, any number of normal members or regular members out. And that's why it's important to let me know if there's an emergency, you don't feel good that you're not coming, because the alternate members aren't required to attend every meeting. They can if they'd like, but they don't necessarily have to. So that's why it's good to let me know. So essentially, every voting member, like I said before, is equal. So just because someone's the chair or the vice chair, it doesn't give them more or less power. It's all equal power across the board. And the majority rules. So if it's 4-1, 3-2, the power of 3 overrules the power of 2. So if something goes into a motion and it's not approved, then you can either amend the motion, which would be a motion to amend, and then you could restate it however you guys have decided that you would like it restated in order for approval, or the motion can die and you can move on to the next thing in the agenda. Next slide. So committee business, like I said, is advanced by motions. So there are certain things that we have to have motions to approve. So the approval of the agenda, the chair will acknowledge, the next discussion topic, when it's time for audience comments, when it's time for board member comments, and there'll have to be a motion to adjourn. That's one that gets forgotten a lot. So just make sure someone makes a motion to adjourn, someone has to second it, and then you guys have to vote on it to agree that it's over with. Okay, so like I said prior, once you make a motion, the motion has to be seconded. If no one seconds the motion dies. So usually that's a good time to discuss how to amend the motion or change the motion so that way it can be approved or at least voted on to be seconded. Next slide. So the chair restates the motion before voting, and that's really essential because sometimes multiple people will second a motion or it can get really muddy and someone can make a motion, it gets voted on, or someone wants it changed, and then you have to make a separate motion to amend the first motion, and that has to have a second and be voted on before you can make a vote for the motion to get voted. So it can get really muddy, and that's why it's important that the chair restates the motion so that way no one's lost and everyone is clear about what it is that they're voting on. If you don't give a yes or a no, it's deferred as a yes. So silence is agreeing. So just so everyone's aware. Next slide. So upcoming dates, you guys do have a piece of paper with all the next upcoming dates. So the committee meeting dates that we have are today, in May on the 20th, and July 29th. These are all Thursdays. They all start at 6:30. And then there is a separate date that's called a sole purpose public workshop date, and I'll explain that more in detail. But that is a meeting that you do not have to attend. It is not a board meeting. It is a public workshop. So there'll be no motions, no agendas. It's informal. It's what we've all talked about and decided, and that's the next step to give it to the public so they can have their opinions. So public can come here, and this is more of a formal kind of thing where, you know, they have their opportunity to speak. This workshop, they'll be able to see plans, maybe models, things like that, and they'll be able to ask questions, and that'll be presented by town staff and not by a board. Okay, next slide. So were there any questions before we move on to the Ferdapp grant about boards or committees? No. Okay. So we're going to move on to the Ferdapp grant and what is a Ferdapp grant, and how you guys are helping us make that a reality. Thank you. So Ferdapp stands for Florida Recreation Development Assistance Program, and it's a competitive reimbursement grant program that provides financial assistance, and that can be for acquisition or development of land for public outdoor recreation, or it can be to modify existing park spaces. So eligible participants include county governments, municipalities, or any other legally constituted local government entity that has a responsibility for providing outdoor space. So the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and Land Recreation Grants administers the Ferdapp. Next slide. So the basics. So projects of 50,000 or less qualify for 100% grants. So if we had a project that we think is $50,000 or less, the program would pay for it 100% and the town would not have to come up with anything. So a local match is required for anything greater than a $50,000 grant application. And we'll go over the match percentage later. So a maximum grant amount is $200,000. Grants are awarded based on an accumulation of points. The higher the points, the better the chances that our grant will be approved and funded. If a project receives a Ferdapp grant funding, the applicant must develop the required site for public outdoor recreation use within 3 years. So whatever we decide here, if we decide to move forward with a Ferdapp grant, we would see the results of whatever the committee decides and town council approves within 3 years. Next slide. Thank you. So what can be done with Ferdapp funds? So a proposed Ferdapp grant must be one of the following 3 categories: an acquisition of land for public outdoor recreational purposes, development or renovation of land for public outdoor recreational purposes or construction, or renovation of a public recreational trail. So we don't have any land available that's open that we can do anything with for the town. So what we're proposing is changing an existing park or modifying it. Most of the parks in town already have been developed with Ferdapp funds. So what we would be doing is applying for renovation of that. already existing Ferdapp Park. Next slide. So requirements for Ferdapp, and this is one of the big reasons why we reinstated the Parks and Recreation Committee. So we have to have at least one regular Parks and Recreation Board Committee. We are having a few more, and that's because the more that we have, we get more points for it, because we're showing that the town wants to have public input and wants us to move forward with this grant. Additional meetings are not required, and town council approval or backing is required of the grant. So that's why you're an advisory committee. Whatever you want us to do, we'll make up, we'll, do whatever it is you guys think we should do, and then we'll bring that in front of town council as your recommendation. So application items, they want conceptual plans. They'll want proof of fund matching if it's more than $50,000. Agreements have to be signed with Ferdapp and the Florida DEP. And the big thing about signing those agreements is that forces us to do some things that maybe you might not want to do, but we have to. So like, we can't charge any funds for use of the park. So right now, our tennis court system, you pay a permit fee, and that lets you have access to the tennis courts. We would not be allowed to have that same system if we decided to have pickleball courts. They would have to be open and available to the public during park times. Same thing with like the boat ramp. The boat ramp was also produced with Ferdapp grant funds. So that's why we can't charge a permitting fee for the sticker. So that way people can have access to the boat ramp. And that's why we allow it for everyone, because it's part of our agreement with Ferdapp that if they're going to give us free money, we have to make it available to everyone. So that's just things to keep in mind. Next slide. So why is Ferdap important? And this allows the town to make investments into the park without coming up with 100% of the project cost. So as you can see, $50,000 or less, they cover 100% of it. Between $50,001 and $150,000, they take care of 75% of it, and the town only has to come up with 25% of the project cost. And as we go to $150,001 up to the $400,000, we're responsible for 50% of the cost. All right. Thank you, Emily. So what we're going to do now is start the conversation about the Fedex Grant project. The town believes that the project cost is going to be around $150,000. And that's because when you take into consideration having to either adjust parking, having to provide lighting so that way people can play after hours, having to retrofit some of the facilities and have access to pickleball courts. And we also get additional points if we upgrade or maintain anything that already exists. So if we want to redo a sidewalk, if we want to redo the parking lot, things like that, recover basketball courts, redo shrubbery, recover the play surface at the tot lot, those things get us points, but they also increase the cost of the grant. Bill, you want to discuss the parks or no?
I'm sort of at a loss for words of how to start this, but the town has received people's input that we need pickleball. So we have worked on ideas of pickleball and do we want it? And that's where y'all come in. But where do we want it? And we have now drawings of an idea that the town has worked on to put pickleball at Community Park. We'll pass this drawing around and you'll see the location, if you know Community Park, which is Carandus Road.
Mhm.
And so you say something?
Yeah, whenever you're done. You done?
Yeah.
So the reason we decided on Community Park is because it has the most available amount of green space. So Town Hall Park and Community Park are the only two parks with water fountain and bathrooms. And those are kind of important things for people that play pickleball and tennis and basketball. And that's why those kinds of structures are at either Community Park or Town Hall Park. There was some conversation about maybe having it at Pine Tree Park, but then we don't have a parking lot. So that increases the cost. We don't have electricity run there. So that would increase the cost. So the reason why we have chosen Community Park is for that reason. We think you'll agree with us once you see, the size of a pickleball court and the amount of extra accessory items that will have to go into making that a reality, that we really don't have space for it at Town Hall Park unless we remove structures that already exist. So we'd have to, adjust the basketball court or play structures that already exist. And changing the tennis courts didn't seem like a great idea because, once again, we can't charge for the tennis courts if we make them pickleball and tennis courts. And we also have a lot of activity on both the tennis courts that we have at Town Hall. They're usually always busy. So then we would have less access for those that enjoy tennis. And we would only have one pickleball court and one tennis court. And we didn't feel like that was a solution to the problem or the idea that was being brought to you guys in the town. So I'm going to pass around the drawing that we have. And right now, this is just what the engineer put up based on some of our suggestions.
Let me show you that.
Wait, no.
This block of lines, and I'll come around and show everybody, but that's where we're talking about. And this is
How many courts is that?
two.
Two, okay.
Bill, where's your mask?
I'm sorry.
Got it.
Are there lights on there? Light to play?
So the proposal would be to have lights because we know that after hours play, so after dusk play, would be, the heaviest time that people usually play tennis. And those are kind of the same times people would play pickleball, is after work hours, when it's exceptionally cooler. I'll hold it and you talk.
So they have the lines that look like baseball field.
There was a baseball T-ball
There was.
planned, but it never came to,
Okay.
so,
It looks like there's another over here further left.
yes,
Correct? Okay.
that one still could be used if,
If we do this plan.
yeah.
There's still plenty of room for other activities
Yes.
down the line. Because that was, okay.
And the walk is existing, is it? The heart walk,
Oh, yes.
isn't it? Okay, it's been a while since I've been over.
Okay, I see.
This right here is the proposed structure area, and that would make it the closest to the bathroom facilities, and it would also make extending the lighting easier, so it'd be less costly. There is also some thoughts about extending the parking lot, so that way we would have more parking at community because community parking is already a little tight. So
I'm in the park every day. And I can tell you right now, I'm often there when there are 5, 6, 7 cars during the day.
yes. So you want to show them? Want to come this way so they can both see it?
That's the lines that we're talking about, pickleball is right there.
So right here.
And the bathroom building is there.
Yeah.
And great.
You can bring that over there. So
What?
you guys, thoughts, opinions? The chair is going to acknowledge you so that we each have a turn to speak. Yeah, that's your job now.
Did a motion for people to talk about it? I'm not gonna be very good at this. I feel like people are.
No,
gonna-
take,
So it's not a motion, you'll just acknowledge. So I don't know if you want to start down at the end and then work your way over
Opening the floor to comments. Is that what we're doing?
of board members, yes.
Comments? Okay. Discussion, comment?
Well, I'm in the park almost every day.
Do I have to recognize?
I
Doreen?
walk
Okay.
3 miles a day around the track. I use the equipment, the adult equipment. I see a lot of people in the park. There's a lot of children that use those playscapes because if you're familiar with it, there are 2 of them. One is for 6 and under, the other is for 6 to 14 or something. That park is used a lot during the day. So I thought that originally that this was going to be at the town hall park. So I'm a little taken aback by that, but I don't really see a problem with it because I don't see this interfering with any of the current activities that I see people using the park for. Other than that, there used to be, before COVID, there were soccer teams that would come out and play. There were baseball teams who would have games on Saturdays and Sundays. So I don't know if this is going to negate their ability to use community park anymore if we use more space for pickleball. And I don't know if that was a source of revenue to the city or not, or the town or not. You know, the soccer and baseball and such.
So in reference to that, actually, that the green field that we have, which a previous Fedex Grant, we had suggested that it was space enough for 2 T-ball fields, but they were never developed. It was just a suggestion for open space there. The fields aren't paid for, so they don't rent the fields. And they usually don't end up renting the pavilion either. So the pavilion is really the only source of income at Town Hall Park and Community Park. Community Park's pavilion is exponentially smaller than the one here. So the cost is $150 for the day. So we usually don't get any revenue funds. Actually, the soccer playing causes problems because they abuse the grass a lot. So there's a lot of resodding, and when it rains, it gets really muddy because the grass isn't there to do its job. So, but all of your concerns, I'm writing them down so that way we can make sure that we acknowledge them. So, Jen, you can move on to the next person.
Someone else?
I guess I'll speak. I mean, it looks like a great idea. I would have only thought that maybe 3 courts would be better. We just, Dave and I started playing pickleball recently because he lives in a condo, had pickleball. We started playing, and it's a lot of fun. It's great exercise for all ages, really. The older the people, it seems like the better they are at pickleball. We just run around like chickens with our heads cut off. But so the parks that you go to, if you go to Lake Lido Park, you go to Okehili Park, I mean, they are packed. Then they have like 6 different courts and they're packed, like to the, with people waiting and 4 people on each court. But I mean, I guess 2 makes sense. That leaves plenty of space. I think that green space is really big and it leaves plenty of space, for kids still to, my daughters actually train soccer over there sometimes. It's been closed for a while now. They have it like closed. They're not a team. They just have one trainer that meets them there and practices, and she still just does it on the side. But I think there's still plenty of space there. And frankly, I mean, a T-ball field, I just don't even know how much use that would really get. I mean, kids go to Phipps Park to play or Okehili. I mean, you got to have a team, and I don't even know if there's enough kids to do that. So that seems like a great plan. And only thing I guess I would say would be think about 3, but I mean, I'm not going to I get 2 is fine, I guess.
I have to agree with Anthony. I think that you might be disappointed if you only get two courts. I think it's gonna get used a lot. So there might be a lot of waiting, people not be able to play. So if it's possible, I don't know on the money, how much they cost or what the fees or whatever it's going to cost, but that might be, you know, consider more than 2 courts.
If I could just to say real quick, only reason I know this is because I was with a friend of mine who lives in the Estates, and I think they're turning one of their courts to pickleball courts over there. So I mean, it's a big thing. So I mean, maybe that will, you know, the people can play, but I think that you have to live in the Estates, correct, to use that? Okay. Anyways, that was the only thought I had, but
If I may, Jennifer, can you reference any other park facility besides the Lake Lytle that has pickleball courts?
Healy has one.
Okay, Haley. And that's really important because oftentimes we can ask them for information, and other municipalities and parks departments are really great about sharing their path to things. And also sometimes we can piggyback on contracts with them. So thank you.
Can I jump in about that? I'm familiar with Gardens, and they have multiple pickleball courts. The one I play at once a week has 12 courts, and they're filled every night, sometimes all day, especially this time of year. And they have multiple, I think they have 3 or 4 facilities, and they're packed. So I know I'm kind of jumping in here, but while you're on that, it's the fastest growing sport right now in the country. And 3 courts, if you can do it, I'm with Anthony and Rennie on this one.
The concern I would have would be parking. And you've only got 10 spaces there. And if you've got 3 pickleball courts, how many cars would you have? And if you're going to expand the parking, I'm not sure where you would do it. You know, the church is right next door. There's plenty of parking. And I think that's what might happen is people would go and park over at the church. And I don't know if that would be a problem for the township.
So currently we have a good relationship with the town, and for events, especially on Saturdays, the town doesn't really mind the overflow parking into their area. But currently the thought is that there is a berm, so a landscape berm along the east side of Community Park. And because it's a berm, we could make that the additional parking. I don't know how many additional spaces that would provide us with. We haven't really looked into it, but that has been the suggestion to accommodate additional parking, is making that additional parking, and then the person would be backing out into Corandis, but it would allow for parking.
well, I mean, what about I mean, there's already a basketball court here. Do you really need the 2 basketball courts? I don't know. I don't know if that's even like a possibility, but I mean, that's like a half court, not even like a half court over there when there's a full court over here. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's a thought for some extra parking. I don't know how many people play basketball there. I'm not sure. When I'm there, every once in a while, somebody's shooting or something like that, but they could just as easily do it here where there's already a basketball court.
And some people are going to use golf carts. Some people are going to walk. So I agree with the parking. That is something we need to look at. But there's going to be other ways people are going to get there, golf carts and walking as well.
One of the big things for the Ferdapp grant is because the park was established using a Ferdapp grant, removing any facilities, so like taking away something would actually take away points from our application, because we're removing play structures or play space and replacing it with parking. And although we do need parking, we would have to show Ferdapp that we have no alternative options in order for them to really be on board with us from removing that from the park. So it's just something to keep in mind.
I have a question to that for you.
Mhm.
So if we were like renovating something that's not really in much use, like what I'm hearing is the basketball courts aren't used much, could it fall into refurbishment, or would it be still removing? That would like count against us? You're fairly certain, or?
So we can change things, and it's based on our needs. So if we can prove that we need this additional parking and that there's no other place, and that, you know, to put the parking, and the parking would be better served to serve people that are going to play pickleball, there would be less of an issue. But if we can find a solution that doesn't require us removing a play structure or a play space, it's better for the application. And that's why I'm saying it's not off the table, but, and it's a great talking point, But it's just something to keep in mind too, that we have to make sure that whatever we decide to remove, like technically we'd be removing one of the T-ball fields, but the T-ball fields were never fully developed. They're just green play spaces. And we don't really need the T-ball fields because we don't offer a recreational facility here because we're just too small. And we have Phipps Park and all the other parks where they can play baseball and T-ball. So if you'd like to have your time to discuss anything,
Do you want to discuss things further?
no, you get an opportunity to speak.
Myself,
Yes.
about what we were just talking about
Uh-huh.
as the chair?
Yeah.
I just thought we should discuss things.
So
Is this like the final verdict? Are we?
no. We're just discussing things. So once you're done making your comments, then you can decide to move on to audience comments, and then your alternate members can speak and Greg can speak if he so wishes.
Okay. Does Claudine have something you'd like to say?
I'm sorry?
Would you like to say something?
Yes. Well, I went a couple of times over to the community park. I think it's a beautiful park, very well maintained, but I don't see the pickleball court there. After going back and forwards and taking some measurements, I think the pickleball court should suit better in the town hall. There is an area where it's feasible. I put it on a map, on a part of the blueprint. I have some documentations of pickle parks, and I took some pictures of the area that I was thinking of. I think it's good to, I mean, in my opinion, to keep tennis and pickleball and things like that together, also for the age group of people. And that's the reason I'm going to switch to the other park, the community park. That park is magnificent for kids. And what I would do there, I put an implantation. Sorry for my English. I find it a side where it would be good to do a water playground. I mean, a lot of kids here. You do a lot for kids. There is no swim pool here. Not everybody has a swim pool, and I have knowledge that a swim pool it's out of the idea for the liability. But you live in a beautiful country. I mean, it's very warm here. And I took the liberty to take some pictures of what I mean with playgrounds. It will be nice for the kids who have no pool. It's also nice for the kids to play, keep kids together. I think it's important to keep kids together because I think they need a social life, and that's already very restricted. The kids are all behind the computers, and I think making things like that would bring them together and make friends. You also have everything there. You have water, you have toilets. Yeah, so the only thing that I would do is on the implantation where I view it, I would add maybe 1 or 2 sheds, like you have already one, a picnic shed, so that parents can be around and, you know, keep an eye on and make it a day out there. I don't know if somebody wants to see what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Here, I'll get it.
Thank you.
So I have a general question, not knowing very much about pickleball. What's the difference in a court from tennis to pickleball? Maybe someone on the board can tell me because it's
It's a much smaller court,
much smaller.
which is nice. It's one of the reasons it's so popular.
Mhm.
Two people, you can play one-on-one, but usually it's 2-on-2. So, if you're having, two courts, you're talking 8 playing at the same time.
Yeah.
The games do go by quick, but it's about the half the size of a tennis court.
And there's a net like tennis.
Yeah, there's a net. It's very similar. It's just smaller
Asphalt.
and use
that-
it. Yeah, that's one thing too. The maintenance, is there maintenance per year, every 5 years on pickleball courts per court? How much you have to refurbish the courts? I mean,
So
it's something.
Mhm.
So I know for the tennis court, we have to maintain it. It's probably every year. The center nets and the dividing nets, specifically the clips because they're made of plastic to separate the two courts. As far as wind screens, those usually go up on tennis to help control the wind. So we would have 4, just like we do here, to kind of lessen that. Those don't usually get replaced every year. Those usually get replaced 3 to 5 years. It kind of all depends on how much sun that area gets. But those are the big things that I know that continuously, regularly get replaced here at the tennis courts. As far as resurfacing, I have not been here for resurfacing. So, Bill, have we
About
resurfaced?
5 years.
About 5 years?
Okay.
Elisa?
It would be the same as tennis. It's the same type of surface.
Elisa?
Yep.
I have also, if this can help.
Oh, you do? You're very prepared.
In my research of what we're looking at pickleball wise,
Mhm.
is that we discussed with some people in other communities, park system, doing the lines and making pickleball on a tennis court was too confusing for those people that play tennis.
Mhm.
And it really was hard for them to play tennis. So we don't want to hurt our tennis community
Sure.
by throwing pickleball into it. So that's why we've decided to move forward to look at it freestanding on its own.
Mhm. Okay, understood.
I mean, you will see the pickleball that I view on here.
Yes.
They are not on the tennis court because I totally agree with you. It's confusing when you have 2 different games on one playground. They're on a different location.
Some comments? Can you hear me? Is this Michael?
I don't think
No, it's not on.
I can hear you.
Couple of thoughts that staff has had over the months that we've been looking at this. A pickleball court is preferred to be 30 by 60 feet.
Mhm.
So there is, it's a very difficult thing to try and fit it on this site. We have basketball was raised. Basketball is incredibly popular. We have basketball teams playing every night on these courts when we have the hoops up. They're down now because of COVID, but when the hoops are up, they play all the time till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. When the weather gets cold, they build fires on the concrete to keep warm, and they just continue to play. So the full court and the half court here and the half court over there are very, very popular places. So eliminating basketball is probably not something that we want to do based on usage.
At the other park, you're saying
Pardon me?
at the other park, you're saying, yeah, eliminating that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that puts us, if we're going to look at pickleball here, the space that we have is really just that green piece of grass that lies to the west of the basketball courts. It's very hard to fit two pickleball courts into that space. You'd have to put them long ways back to back instead of
Yeah.
sideways like the tennis courts are. They'd have to go long ways back to back. Could we make it happen? Probably. Would it be a shoehorn fit? Definitely. We looked at the splash play areas in the past. One, the capital cost is very high, but most importantly, the reoccurring operational costs are incredible. You have to have a water treatment plant on site to treat every drop of water that goes through this play area. And because we're in Florida, we have a lot of evaporation. So we have a lot of makeup water. We have to buy all of our water. So it isn't like we have a treatment plant and we can make our own and siphon some off. So it turned out that the operating costs on those splash play areas were very high. Operating costs from my perspective is a reoccurring cost. The capital is easier to come up with because it happens once and we can get grants for it. The reoccurring operational costs become a challenge down the road. So that's why we have not looked at that in any serious kind of way. The last time we looked at it, it was about $350,000 to build it, but it was about $70,000 a year to operate it. And that's, for us, that's a really big number. So back to, there's another spot at Corandis Park that we could put the courts. It's not very convenient, but that would be in the very southeast corner. If we took the berms out in the southeast corner next to the plastic surgeon's office and we relocated the path, we could put them in, again, head to tail, down in that corner. It's inconvenient for the bathrooms. There's no water in that area. There is power and one of the small pavilions, so there would be an opportunity for shade and we could light it without a lot of problems. But it's a long ways to go to the drinking fountain. Can we put one there? Sure, but we're gonna have to tear up the fields and everything to get it there. Maybe that's not a big deal. They may get torn up for construction, but just some of the thinking that we have done so far. In terms of 2 or 3, we've been told to expect that these courts will cost us anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 a court to build, put the fences up, and put the lighting in. So trying to look at the Fedex Grant, we'd like to stay in that 150,000 or under range to maximize, to minimize the amount of money we have to put out. So that's why we were only looking at 2. We think that keeps us well below the 200 and therefore still in the 25% match. 25% of $150,000 is $37,500 that we have to come up with to be able to do that. So none of that is a deal breaker by any means. I just wanted to let you know what we have thought about in the past as staff looked at this project.
Now, can I speak freely here or yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now, when we get, are we in, I mean, I'm assuming the city or the town, I'm sorry, goes and gets the numbers and stuff from whoever, at some point. Okay. It's not like that's something that we,
right.
I guess it would just be interesting. I mean, to see the comparison of 2 to 3. I mean, to see, all right, 3 is going to cost us X amount, 2 is going to cost us that. once we know that, then you can say, all right, that makes sense. I see that, we're going to
Yeah.
stay in the 25% range. That way it's 37,000. I think that would be a good information, I guess, to know. I think that, from what we're seeing, I just think that pickleball is going to become bigger and bigger. And I just, if you have, because of the fact that, it's anywhere from 14 years old to, 75 years old. I mean, everyone is really playing it. So there's just such a large portion of the population that'll play it. And I think that eventually, the word will get out like, hey, there's a court over in Lake Clark Shores and there'll be people there, not just from the town, but from outside the town. So, I think that would be good to know, I guess, what the numbers would be. Hey, 2 would cost us X amount, 3 would cost us X amount. All right, it makes sense to do 2, it makes sense to do 3, something like that, I would think. And I mean, I think the spot where it's at is perfect too. But, you guys obviously put thought into it and it makes sense. And I think that still leaves plenty of grass for, people to play just about anything they want. About,
And if we put a third one in there, we probably orientate them north and south and put 3 side by side instead of keeping them east and west.
Yeah.
It still leaves that field open.
That field is, I'm guessing that field is close to 100 yards, I would think, of grass, if not more.
Yeah.
200 and something.
Yeah.
What is it?
200,
Oh, that, okay.
Is it that much?
220.
That much?
I'm just,
Okay. So that's a lot of room.
Yeah, it's plenty.
And I agree. I think looking at all the parks and parking and restrooms, I think no place is perfect. But I think that's the most ideal if we're going to move on with it, just from what I'm looking at. When you look at all the different variables and locations, it just makes sense.
And I want to say, I think the water park's a great idea, to be honest with you. I have 2 little kids. They would love that water park, but I think that I'm an insurance agent, so I know that liability is higher when there's water involved and there's different things like that. So I know that that's an issue. And then obviously, where you spoke about the continuing costs, I mean, that, it'd be nice, but I guess I can see where that's not really a possibility anyways.
And Palm Springs, do they have pickleball courts? Do we know that?
I'm not certain if they have pickleball courts. I know that they have several tennis courts. I believe the tennis pro had mentioned that they have plans to change a set of their courts to pickleball. But from what I've seen, it hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
I think, what's the one west of Palm Springs? Green Acres. Green Acres is the other municipality that has it.
Okay. Well, I think it's Lake Lido has a bunch of courts, but at Okeechobee, and then John Prince Park, I think, are building pickleball courts within a year, or maybe they're doing it right now. Just throwing that out there that a lot of the county parks are building a bunch of pickleball courts as well.
I did hear about John Prince Park. Maybe you told me that. So
Yeah.
That's the information. We can't discuss that anymore, though.
Madam Chair, you have some other alternates. Would you like to hear from them?
Oh, no, I'm good. I don't even know what pickleball is. So I'm glad you asked the question because I had no idea. What's the turnover game? Like in tennis, it's like hour and a half, 2 hours.
No,
What's the
it's
turnover?
very quick.
How long is
Very
the
quick.
game?
It's about maybe 10 minutes.
So when you go play, like when you guys get together and play, like how long are you out there for? Because if you're talking about like 2 courts, 4 people, and people showing up and waiting, are they gonna be waiting for like how long?
It's a quick game and it rotates quickly. So,
Okay.
you have, some benches, I'm assuming, are part of the product, but you got people waiting. And then as soon as, one team loses, they keep the court and, here comes the,
Oh, so.
and I'll say about basketball, I grew up playing basketball over here. So I played so much basketball over there. I don't even know it from 1993 to like 2003. So I'm not saying get rid of basketball. I loved those courts. I spent a lot of time there. So I was just thinking maybe on that one, because we already have one here, but whatever. I get what you're saying.
So it's like so whoever wins stays on the court and then the other team
Well, every
plays.
different parks and different places have different rules.
Okay.
Kind of, grandfather rule.
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
places I play, you talked about the condos. Sometimes they have different rules. And if I go to Lake Lido, sometimes winners stay on until you win 3 in a row, and then it's a new fresh 4. But everybody has their different
Okay.
rules. I mean, that's something too we could look at, or maybe some Lake Clark Shores rules. This is how we do it.
Yeah,
So
maybe
people
like
aren't
courtesy,
waiting,
like,
which is nice.
But
but the turnover is quick.
Okay,
And sitting, I mean, you're going to wait, that's fine, but you don't want to wait like an hour.
right.
You know, and you know, the times most people are going to use it are obviously after work and the weekends.
Right.
But it is a quick game. It's a lot
Okay.
quicker than tennis.
So it's like a 10-minute game, you would say?
Yeah,
That
about
quick?
10
That
minutes.
quick,
Yeah.
oh, wow.
And we just started playing 4 months ago. I was like, it's just for old people. And some people talked me into it. And like, I'm addicted. And now all my friends that said the same thing, now we start playing once a week in gardens. And, you know, my nephews are like 14, 16, they start playing it. I mean, it's really, really popular. Like I said, I think it's popular, but it's the fastest growing sport in the country right now. And, you know, I've seen many articles in the Palm Beach Post the last 6 months about all the pickleball courts they're building in Palm Beach County. It's just crazy how, and gardens, I mean, like I said, 12 courts every night, they're full. Now Gardens is a much bigger municipality than Lake Clark Shores, but it's crazy the popularity of the sport, and it really is growing.
I mean, David and I played Bruce and Bruce, who were about 65 and 70, and they beat us in like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
One time in Lake Lido. So
Yeah,
it could be quicker than 10 minutes.
Yeah, it could go quick.
It was Dave's fault, by the way.
Yeah,
It was not
well,
mine.
and another thing too is you play to 11, but if there's people waiting, you play to 9. So it goes even quicker. And like I said, usually you can play singles, but 90% of the time you're going to play doubles,
Got it.
you know, 2 and 2.
So I'm hearing we probably need to have like rules posted for this.
Yeah, posted rules is actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
You know, these are,
Back to the parking. Dave, you mentioned people weren't always going to drive over, and that made me think about people who might bike. And Community Park, one of the things that I've found is that when people come there and they're on bikes, there's no place for them to park their bike. There's no bike stands there. And the kids usually just throw them on the ground, okay? But maybe a bike stand might be part of your planning to help with the parking thing, because a lot of people could just bike over.
yeah, it's a good idea. I think with parking, people are going to realize real quick they don't want to deal with the parking. And if they live close by or they have a golf cart, that's what they're going to take, or they're going to walk. Part of it's
But
for,
even a
you know,
golf cart's gotta be
exercise.
parked someplace.
Well, yeah, that's something we'd have to look into, you know, where do you park? But I mean, there's golf
Because if
carts
a
there all
golf
the
cart's
time.
taking up a parking space, it's
Yeah.
still gone.
Well, yeah, I would hope they wouldn't do that. But yeah, these are all it's a good point, really good point. You know, where do the golf carts park? Because you're going to have more golf carts. Where do the bikes park? And we don't want the golf carts taking up all the car parking. So that's a good point. And those are the things we definitely
When
need.
you said
into.
the golf carts, that's what I thought about. What's the difference?
Well, I know when I go there, I don't park in a parking spot. I kind of just, you know, find
on the
some
grass.
grass or wherever.
Right.
But not everybody's going to do that, you know, so that's a good point.
But you also see a lot of people cycling. So I think it would be good all over to have more places to park bicycles. Especially there is an issue to park cars all over. I think cycling should be taken more in consideration here in Lake Clark Shores.
All right.
All right. Any more comments? We still doing?
One more thing too, just something we're going to have to touch, like hours of operation as far as pickleball. I don't want to say it's loud, but neighbors can hear it. That's going to be a factor of how late, you know, they can play at night, just throwing that out there and then lights. But I do know it is, I don't want to say loud, but I've been in certain facilities where some neighborhoods, they've complained. So just throwing that out there. I don't know if we thought about hours of operation.
That's a good question. Would they be lit? Are these
Yes.
courts being lit? They are. That's
Yeah,
that
that's
part.
part
Okay.
of it.
I assume
That park's
would get
pretty-
after work.
I'm sorry. That park's pretty insulated. I mean, there's no houses that are directly connected to it.
I think Gardens is 10 o'clock.
Across the street.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Palm Beach Gardens is 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So,
Is there a time for the basketball courts that they close, or do you sort of keep the lights on and people can play till 1 in the morning, you said?
Officially, our parks close at dark, but with the tennis courts being lit, the basketball court being lit, these being lit, we haven't really enforced not using them. Nobody has complained yet. And where we're putting these, which is in essence in the center of that park, with the park surrounded by commercial on one side, a church on another side. There is housing to the south, but it's across the canal and quite a ways away. There are other offices there. So the only two homes that might possibly be affected would be to the north, and they'll be close to probably 70 yards away from the pickleball courts.
Yeah, that's good. That's another reason that area, not perfect, but I think that's just the ideal spot.
Yeah. Right.
I was wondering about what the potential would be also for the impact on police service. That they have to also spend time over there to either monitor or respond to perhaps noise complaints. I wasn't aware of what pickleball was. Bill was trying to explain it to me yesterday out in the swamps. And so I don't know what kind of noise level decibel wise we may be talking. And I realize that's an ambient factor based on environment, based on wind direction, wind speed, but also distance relationships to residences. And that's a very valid point, because that's probably where you'll get your first complaints from, is the noise.
It's not that loud, Dave. I mean, it's not.
No, I'm
It's
just
a wiffle
looking at,
ball. It's a wiffle ball with a
Yeah.
wood paddle. So it's not
it's very similar to tennis, just kind of a different noise. I don't want to, I'm not saying it's loud.
as loud as
I'm
a
gonna-
bat hitting a ball.
Yeah,
but
I'm just
it's
trying to
a
say
little less.
something to think about when hours operation, something that could come up.
Yeah.
I don't think it's extremely loud at all, but
It's not the ball and the paddle, it's
The
people.
yeah,
enjoying
People,
yeah.
yeah,
themselves.
of course.
What I took.
yeah.
Dave's a screamer a little bit. But
No, but it is the traffic, the people talking, even when they're done with the games, heading to their cars and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it's a valid point.
makes you hope for the best, that hopefully people respect, you know what I mean? That's what you, because I mean, that's the same thing with basketball. I've definitely gotten loud out here on this basketball court before. I mean, probably worse than who we're going to have playing pickleball, you know, probably going to be usually a more mature crowd playing the pickleball than, you know, playing basketball out here. It's usually kids.
It's not going to be louder than the wave runners on the lake at 12
for
o'clock,
sure.
you know, at night on the weekend. So,
That's true.
or actually during the week. So,
That's for sure.
All right, any other comments? I do have one thought myself personally. So the only thing that's coming to mind, and I don't know, does this relate directly to this Ferdapp? Well, it is for grants for project. So all the existing, let's say parks and facilities, like I go to that Hart Trail at Pine Tree Park frequently because I live so close. So those are like in, let's say, disrepair. Is there like funds set aside for that, or is that its own separate like Ferdapp project, or what? Is there some separate, let's say, plan for like maintenance and things that are kind of needing some attention?
So we have budgeted for Parks and Rec every year in the budget, and that's for maintenance and upkeep and things that break. So those kinds of things, I would suggest that you do see something, say something. So that's where you email the town. You can email me, you can email Dan, you can email Bill, and let them know that you're seeing certain things. Bill goes and inspects once a month all the parks. And so we kind of combined a list, and some things are super easy to fix and other things require, you know, quotes or different things in order to get them fixed. And sometimes some things are so big that they have to wait to be put on the next budget year. So there's not money set aside from Ferdapp. What it is that we have an obligation to maintain it, and those are with our own funds. So that's why there's maintenance and repair budgeted for Parks and Recs. But if we wanted to update or change the usage of the park, that would be something where we would reapply for a Fedex Grant, kind of like what we're doing here. We're changing the green space into possibly pickleball courts. So we're updating based on the needs of the community.
So there's budget funds set aside for, let's say, repairs, but like that Hart Trail, just specifically that, because I'm familiar with it. Like, let's say there's a shelf life for all those machines, like eventually there's like the cost to repair versus the cost to replace. Like, where are we at in the scale of that, like lifespan for those pieces?
So
The,
Bill,
the
do you
machines
have,
that move and all the things that kind of sit there, like some are just bars, but some actually have moving parts. And I start to think back, how old is that park and when do they sort of need just like full replacement, or do we continue to repair those?
We've been lucky enough to buy the right components,
Okay.
and yes, we'd like to see 20 years. That's the grant, 20-year program.
Uh-huh.
We'd like to see that before we have to replace it. But as I said, we do have money in the budget to say if the slide broke, that we can.
Repair. Okay.
We just went through and painted all of that equipment over
Noticed
there.
that, yeah.
So we're trying to keep up with everything.
Mhm.
I know at Caranda's Park, Doreen talked to me a lot about some of the new equipment that we put in there.
Mhm.
We try to go back to the original equipment manufacturer to get replacement parts. That cuts down on our liability. A lot of this stuff looks like it'd be real simple and we can go buy a nut and a bolt from somebody and throw it in, but it changes the picture. And sometimes getting those parts, I know we had pedals
Pedals for the
over here.
bike. 6
It took
months.
forever to get those pedals.
Yeah.
So two thoughts. One, as Bill said, sss@lakeclark.org is see something, say something. That's an email address that you can send us any note about anything, anywhere,
Okay.
from a dead animal laying on the street to a pothole to a piece of park equipment that needs to be repaired. Let us know and we'll get somebody out there to begin the process.
Okay.
And if there's something that looks like it's dangerous or critical, pick up the phone, give us a call, and we'll get somebody right out to at least tape it off if we can't fix it,
Mhm.
so that nobody gets hurt.
Okay.
Can I
Good to
say
know.
something? There at Community Park, there is a brick area with a table and a bench. And I noticed recently that the little brick pieces were all breaking up and falling apart. So I was piling them up and getting ready to send you all a picture. But those bricks, some of them have inscriptions in them back, I think, for the 50th anniversary, if I remember that right.
No, that was for the park itself.
Right. And people paid for the bricks and had their names inscribed or in honor of, in memory of. And there's lots of space left for more of those. And that was quite a while ago, obviously, when people did that. As a fundraising mechanism, maybe you could do it again and offer people the opportunity to have an engraved brick put into that space. And that would bring in some money for the parks.
If I may, when we did that here at Town Hall
As well.
as well, when we built Town Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And we found that the labor for town employee was much more than we were raising by the bricks. So if you want a brick, we can go to the manufacturer and get one made, but as a fundraiser, it wasn't economical for us to do.
So you're saying that the cost of the brick was eaten up by, I mean, the price of the brick that brought in the funds was eaten up by the installation of the brick?
No, it's the employee that had to get the money in, focus to make sure that the money was spent in buying of the brick and what the brick said and make sure that, so, but today we can still buy the bricks if we want to buy the bricks, but a fundraiser didn't work well for us. So
I just knew they were there and I remembered them being, part of the anniversary. So.
Any more comments or discussion? Do I do motion to adjourn?
Someone else usually makes the motion to
Oh.
adjourn, but just as a side note, so all the things that you guys brought up to talk about. So what my job is to go back with Bill and Dan and to bring information back to you guys for the next meeting. So all the questions that you had, the insights that you wanted, that's what you're going to get at the next meeting as part of your discussion. Okay?
Actually, I have one more real quick.
Yep.
When is the grant due? And how long does it take once it's turned in to get an answer? On the
So the grant application period runs October 1 to about the second or third week of October. And so that's why we're doing all this preemptively, because we need to make sure that we have all of the requirements for the application done and completed. And we need to make sure that town council, if we have to put in, some amount of share of the cost, that's part of the next year's budget, and that's set aside, and that they have the intention to move forward with that and support that decision. After that, we probably won't know until the beginning of the following year. So January, February timeframe is when we'll know when it's been awarded.
Then we have to wait on the state to fund it.
Yeah, actually physically write the check, which takes a while.
Okay, yeah.
So if
The construct, yeah,
if the people in Tallahassee want to fund Ferdapp for that year,
yeah.
but we could go into a second year, they'd hold our.
Yeah, so we're
paperwork.
talking of construction by the time it's done, we're talking 3 years. I mean,
So once they've awarded the grant and we've started moving forward with the process, it needs to be 100% completed within 3 years.
So, David, you're absolutely right. It's probably a 3-year process to get the money and get things built and be able to use it. We don't know if they're going to fund Ferdapp this year. There's been a lot of talk about the budget because of COVID. There's also been a lot of talk about the American Rescue Plan and the dollars that are coming to the state and where they're going to go. So Ferdapp may get some funding. Most importantly, from our perspective, is jumping through all the hoops that maximize the number of points that we get. Because the more points we get, the higher we are on the list. So if they only have so much money and they run out and we're down here, we don't get anything. So we want to maximize the points, get as high as we can. So there may be ancillary crazy little things that we throw into this because that's going to get us 5 extra points that may have nothing to do really with pickleball, but it's all play in the game to maximize our opportunity to get the money.
By this lightning, can that count like in Pine Tree Park?
What?
We talked already a while ago about the lights in Pine Tree Park, that they're so bright and you don't see much. The one that goes down is for neighbors much nicer because you don't have them in your face, but you also see much better on the floor.
That lighting for that application would not meet any requirements for Ferdapp. And it wouldn't get us, it's a single issue kind of thing, so we wouldn't get points for it that would get us anywhere near where they might fund. So that has to be done out of good old tax dollars.
Yeah. And what about, I mean, I don't use them, but the workouts.
That's what Jennifer was talking about.
Yes.
Heart Trail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I notice in the other parks that here and there that there is nice surrounding on the floor, and maybe now, but the last time I went, it's still kind of nasty what's on the floor there. Can something be done there?
Bill will look at that and
Where?
tell us.
Where are we talking about?
Oh, Pine Tree Park.
Around the equipment on the Heart Trail and Pine Tree Park.
Oh, yeah, we are a little short on mulch for argument. Is that what we're referring to?
Yes.
The rubber material?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, we didn't put anything in the budget for that, but as we get close to the end of the budget, maybe there's something left in maintenance that we could do something. But right now, there's nothing in the budget for it till we'll put it in next year. But it's washes away and other things have happened to it. But it is not required. It's just making it look nice.
Well, it's something that I noticed that
Yes.
the maintenance of community park and here are way higher.
Too true. But we'll look into it.
I motion to adjourn.
Someone second?
Second it, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion to adjourn granted. That's my granting it. Am I nailing this right now or am I?
Approved. You say approved.
Do I pass? What do I say?
You're good. You're good. So
Now you're-
Emily, if you'll stop the recording.
You should have done it.
No, no.